And, you know, I wanted to talk, I guess, a tiny minute about my background. Julia didn't get a chance to talk about her background, but as you can tell, she's a force to be reckoned with, and was a young elected official and made history in New York, and obviously, you know, saw a need to start Frack Action and was the founder of Frack Action in 2010. And you know, I have a background in organizing as well. For 12 years, I've been working on a number of public justice issues, but mostly on environmental issues. I actually worked for a couple years on the right to water and on stopping privatization of water in the United States. I know, which is, I am so incredibly inspired to see such an amazing movement here. It just, people don't even know what's going on in the U.S. These private companies are coming in, and we've been used to water being a public good, and we already pay for water in the U.S. As a public entity. So, you know, so inspired by this movement here on that. And then, you know, came into fracking, working on fracking. Met Julia. I was working with an organization called Food and Water Watch, and that's who I was working on the anti-privatization campaign with. But anyways, on to the anti-fracking campaign. You know, I think there's, you know, I want to get to the Q&A part and not talk too much, but I think there's two things to touch upon. It was the organizing, it was the building of a mass movement. What you all are doing with the Right to Water movement and with the fracking movement, the building of people power in numbers and pressure coming from the people, in addition to the facts and the science on fracking that it can't be done safely, and the experiences from people across the United States. That's what really, I think, made the ban in New York possible. You know, so like Julia said, we passed a moratorium in 2010, but that came from the people power. And there's literally people being educated from watching Gasland across the state, people spreading the word about what was happening across the border, hundreds of grassroots groups across the state. And New York is a very populated state. Not only do we have, obviously we have New York City, but we have several large, not as large as New York, but several small cities, I guess you would call them, across upstate New York, where we're all from, up in the northern part of the state, and many towns that are very populated, and lots of universities. So, you know, we have a history of movement building and just a history of people who organize on campaigns. And so all of these grassroots groups across the state were organizing to ban it in their town or in their city. And so, you know, we saw an opportunity, Julia, John, and I, and others that worked with us, to build a movement calling for a statewide ban on fracking, and really utilizing all of these grassroots movements, all of the thousands of people who are educated and becoming experts on fracking, to call for a statewide movement to stop fracking. And so, you know, we have kind of, you know, three different prongs of it, and my background is organizing, and that's the role that I took in this campaign, was in you know, organizing rallies and educating people across the state and gathering petitions and delivering them to our governor. And so essentially, you know, we educated people across the state with more film screenings, just people, you know, just like you, people didn't know what fracking was in 2010, 2011. So it was this mass, you know, effort amongst those of us who did know what it was to educate our neighbors by knocking on doors, showing film screenings, holding public forums. We went to many concerts. The music community in New York was so supportive, was immensely supportive. We went to hundreds, if not thousands, of concerts and music festivals and other festivals with flyers that had just bullet points about what fracking was, and, you know, key information, getting people to sign petitions. And we, by the end of our campaign, we had delivered over 500,000 petitions to Governor Cuomo calling for a ban on fracking. So, you know, that's kind of the people power. But we knew in order to really ban fracking, we didn't, you know, we couldn't just do it with the people. We couldn't just do it with petitions of just individuals. It had to be individuals in combination with different constituency groups like business owners, health professionals, scientists, doctors, artists, like Julia said. It was kind of this diverse movement of people all speaking out, writing letters to the editor in our local paper, you know, speaking out in their communities, speaking out at press conferences across the state, and all with this one target of Governor Cuomo. You know, he was our ultimate decision maker, and that was, you know, one of our main things was seeing that, you know, this was the person who was going to make this decision. He was the one who was the head of our environmental, you know, the Department of Environmental Conservation, which was the body studying fracking with the environmental impact statement in New York. So speaking of the environmental impact statement, there was a public consultation process with that. And on previous issues, the most comments the Department of Environmental Conservation had ever received on any issue was 1,000 comments. And by the end of our campaign in New York, we had delivered over 100,000 comments to the DEC on fracking. And this was just, you know, when we were rolling in 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, it was just, they'd never dealt with anything like this before in our New York State government to be receiving that many comments from the people. And people were experts, you know, we all became experts on this issue. So, you know, that was a major part in stopping this, was all of these articulate, very, you know, just detailed comments on why fracking cannot be done safely. So, you know, we started the coalition, New Yorkers Against Fracking, like Julia said, with many other organizations, large, small, medium, small, over 250 groups, more than 1,500 businesses, more than 300 members of faith, health professionals, elected officials, you know, all highlighting, you know, the science and the health impacts and speaking out in their own way. You know, and one key thing we did is we also followed our decision maker. So Governor Cuomo would make public appearances across the state, and we literally would keep track of his public schedule, and we had a rapid response system, and we would phone each other up, email each other, make a Facebook event. We're very big on Facebook events in New York. I don't know if everyone does that here, but you know, on a moment's notice, sometimes with 24 hours notice, sometimes less, hours notice, we would get a hold of everyone in a community and get people out with signs wherever the governor was going to be driving by or had an event in a building, to the point where the governor joked if we weren't outside with our anti-fracking signs at an event, he thought he was in the wrong place. So, you know, this was a big part of you know, how building this movement, being relentless. So not just having the numbers, but being visible. You know, being visible to the person who we identified was making this decision. And so, you know, we went everywhere. You know, he even called us the most organized movement in the state. You know, so for your decision maker to be giving you kudos for your organizing, for your movement building, you know, we felt like we were doing the right thing, and you know, but we knew it was what was necessary to win, was to always be there, and not just there with signs that say we're against fracking, but signs that say we're against fracking because of this fact, because of this piece of science, because of this experience that this person has had. So you know, it's the numbers and the pressure combined with the reality of what's happening with fracking. You know, so I think that's all I have. There's a lot to be said, you know, and I think Julia touched on this as well. You know, New York State is very similar to Ireland. We're an agriculture and tourist-based state. We have lots of, you know, our economy is based off of farming, and nature, and tourism, and obviously, you know, we have New York City as well, which is a big tourist attraction. And you know, this was not an upstate versus downstate movement. You know, we all came together. Everyone in New York City, everyone in upstate New York, across the state, came together to organize this massive movement. We had rallies in the state capitol, as you saw in the video, and you know, started with hundreds, or you know, and then built to 1,000. 1,000, then built to thousands of people, and we were just, you know, there every year, everywhere our governor was, we were there, and we did it, you know. And John's going to talk about how we did, you know, how the health, switching to the health message, calling on our government to study the health was a part of that. And, you know, we're here to learn, obviously, from all of you and what you've been doing and how we can help, and hopefully, you know, our experiences, and we can talk more in the Q&A, you know, can help with what's going on here. So thank you.